when she took that transition. I got to be the men's guy. I was the kids pastor, parenting, marriage, small groups. So I've had the ability to, I guess, get my feet wet in a lot of areas. Before that, I did college ministry at UND for 4 years, and then before that, did youth ministry and worship with Pastor Sheldon out in Watford City, which was a very cherished season of ours. And then before that, we were in Fargo at First Assembly. That was my home church growing up. I did worship ministry under Scott Flotton, and so I've appreciated North Dakota as a whole, and just I've gone from the east side, I went all the way to the west side, went back to the east side in Grand Forks, and now I've landed in the middle, and so it's just been a neat journey, I guess, the last 13 years, being able to see what ministry is like across the network, and even just experience, Watford City, when we moved there, was 4,000, I think. I think in the 2 years we were there, it went to 11,000, and experienced that. What's that?
You did good.
Yeah, no, there's something called oil, right? But just doing oil ministry, which Justin, I know you've had the experience in Beulah, I'm sure, right? And probably beach. Is the oil out there too?
Yeah, we're kind of on the edge of it.
On the edge of it, okay.
But some of it spilled over into us.
Yeah, and it didn't, how about down in Bowman?
I work in the oil field.
You do work in the oil field, okay. So.
Yeah, it's been there for, the field I work in is approximately 50 years old.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't get the press that Bakken does.
No. So, anyways, I say all that just to kind of give an introduction of, I guess, my heart for the state and the network, and just appreciation that I have for the network and Superintendent Winston, and a lot of the pillars of this state and people that have invested much into the ministries of this state. And so obviously we're talking about online ministry, and this is something that falls under my portfolio here. Part of my role at Evangel is to just consider multiplication and what is God doing here, and is there a way to multiply that? And so we look at that from a large standpoint. We kind of ask the question of, is God moving in someone's heart that he wants to send somewhere? If so, where? Another question we ask is, where is God moving? And is he wanting us to do something there? And then the third question that we ask, is there a need? And can we do something about that need? And is God calling us to that need? And so that's kind of the filter we look through. And we had a unique opportunity a few years ago to pray about planting a campus in Garrison, North Dakota. And that actually all started out of our online ministry. And so there's a family that would drive down every Sunday to be a part of Evangel, and they just were like, man, we really, really want a church like this in our community. And so they started in their living room on a Saturday night. They would watch our service, and we, at the time, were like, no, we're not looking to plant, but you guys can for sure watch the service. You can use, the messages. You can, we'll help coach or whatever. And so they ended up doing that. They outgrew their living room, went into the post office. Anyways, long story short, now we have Pastor Corey, who's up in Garrison, because it came back to this place of like, oh man, they need a pastor. God's doing something there. And a large part of that came out of our online ministry. So I say all that to say, I think online ministry is something that can open up opportunities, but I don't think that's what it has to become. And so today what I want to talk about is really gaining and keeping momentum with Church Online, because I think Church Online can be viewed not just as expanding our reach, or we want to go plant somewhere, or we want to reach people in Texas and Arizona, or wherever that may be. To me, that would be gaining new momentum, gaining new people, growing your church in a different way. But also, I think Church Online can help you maintain momentum with the people that you have coming through your four walls, and saying, man, how can I maintain momentum. I just cast vision last Sunday, and half my people didn't show up because there's a snowstorm. So now what do? Because I was going to build on that vision this week. And so I think sometimes we just say, well, I need to kick the ball down the road and push that to next week, and then we kind of lose momentum. And so I think we live in an age where we are provided technology, we're provided different avenues of communication, where we don't have to just wait for people to show up in person to even maintain momentum and continue the work and the vision that we believe God's put in our hearts. And so that's kind of the broad approach that I want to take as we go today. And really I want this to be kind of a Q&A. I want it to be helpful for you guys because I know what we're doing. And I think it would be helpful for me to know, like, what context are you coming from and what, drew you here today in interest of online ministry. And so I would love to take a quick moment to ask that question of you, of like, what brought you to this breakout session, just so I can kind of hear your context. So we'll start from my right and go this way. How about you?
Well, I'm so thankful back before COVID, right before it shut down, we didn't know there was going to be a shutdown. We had ordered just basic stuff to start online.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful we did. What a lifesaver that was.
Yeah.
But since we've been doing it, we've had so many wonderful contacts with people. So anyway, the reason I came today was just to get ideas on how to develop it, how to, we've got, just like this past Saturday, I learned a lady has been watching for quite a while now. She came to our Father's Day. She's never been inside for a church service, but she's been watching online, and I just want to maybe get some ideas of how to connect with those people that are watching. I guess that's my big
That's
question.
great. That makes sense. How about you, Warren?
Not much different than what Pastor Kent has talked about.
Okay.
Because of the pandemic,
Mm-hmm.
we did several weeks of services from my home on a computer.
Mm-hmm.
I had I'm blessed with a couple of man and wife team that are great technicians with that little thing you've got up there. And so she would sit literally off to one side out of camera view. All the people saw was me. They did not see what Marty was doing behind the scenes out of view of that camera and how she was making that service work.
Mm-hmm.
All I was doing was just doing the service.
Yeah.
So then when it moved back into the church, then it became a broader thing where her husband and she put together all the camera we needed, the technology we needed, and did it as inexpensively as you could about imagine.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to a gentleman who was in a church at another church in Bowman, and actually he said, well, we spent $40,000 to get everything online as to where we wanted it to be, and I thought, boy, if we spent more than $1,000, we were over the top. And I couldn't believe that they had spent that much money. So back to what Pastor Kent said, my objective is to, how can I reach out and touch those people who I will never see inside my church doors, because some of them are in Bismarck here, some are in Fargo, some are in Minnesota, some are in Bozeman, Montana. How do I ever connect with them? How do I touch them even though they're not in my church person?
Okay. Just so I don't prolong it, is that kind of everyone's main question, or is there anyone else who's like, I'm here for a different purpose?
So this is our pastor, and he does his thing on Sunday. I just have a heart for how do you disciple out of that?
Yeah.
My husband and I do some online groups, but what can that look like, or just not doing church in a traditional way for people that may never step inside our doors. What do you guys do, or what could that look like?
Okay.
I guess I'm slightly different. We've had very little success online. It's gone terribly. I mean, people did it during COVID because they had to, and then as soon as that went away, everything dropped. And so, it's a weak spot for our organization.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, is it worth it, or is there a different approach that we could think of that?
Yeah, you also run into that problem too. I'm on the board, but do I go to the other board members and do we look at pouring resources in this? Do we look at pouring volunteer time into it if it's not bearing fruit?
Yeah. That's a good thought. Okay.
My name's, sorry, Bryce, but it's a little
No,
slightly different. Just, so we have our satellite, Pastor Lane in Fairview now, church. I have Javen McGorman, who does most of our online. He's navigating our switcher and all these other things. We use Resi and blah blah blah. I don't know what y'all use, but I'm really just here kind of as a data dump. I'm going to take everything and anything and hey, what just let it come into the funnel, and then what are the things that we can take home? It's hey, this could really help.
Yeah.
Maybe this for refining of this particular feed and how we're going.
Yeah.
And we split them out to the multiple social media channels that we use. Is there something better than Caster? IO, which is what we currently use to go out and separate different ones. So I'm honestly I'm here for it all. So whatever you've got, bring it up. Excited. Well, if that's it's going to whittle that down. But I'd also like to take a look at maybe some of your hardware. At some point, while I'm here for the next 48 hours, just maybe even offline, so to see what you guys are using.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay. Appreciate it.
I think so. We have our creative and production team that's doing 2 sessions tomorrow too. That'll be more of the technical side. So yeah, today I was going to focus more on the ministry strategic side of it, because for so long we were providing an online message, and we just kind of asked the question: is that all church is? Is church just watching a message? And we all as pastors would say, no, that's not what church is. And so for us to so actually in the fall of September we officially launched our online campus, although we have been providing an online service for a few years already. So everyone's like, well, what's the difference? You've already been showing church online, And we're like, yeah, but it's not a campus. We haven't had discipleship. We haven't had next steps. We haven't had greeters. So there's a lot of things that we added on to say, if this is truly going to be a campus, what are we going to do to dedicate it as a campus? Now, I'm not saying every person, every church should do that. I think I'll just dive into it then. I think a lot of what I have written down will hopefully speak to a lot of what you guys said. When I think of growth versus momentum, I think of growth as bringing, going from one static number 2 connect groups to a new static number of 4 connect groups. But that doesn't necessarily say you have momentum yet. And so I think as church leaders, I'm looking for momentum. Momentum is saying, we went from 2, from 4 to 6 to 8 without changing anything. We've made this process and the system, whether it's discipleship or whatever, and it's working and things are growing, healthy. And so there's momentum going. And so for me, I think our in-person campus, what is healthy, what is working here, what has momentum, and how can I use online to help either grow that momentum or maintain that momentum. I'm not saying, I need to go gain momentum. We're not growing. Let's look online. I don't think that's the first place to look if you don't have momentum, if you don't have growth. So that's just my personal disclaimer out there. So I think when we're looking at online, we're saying, what's everything we're doing in person, and how, if we create an online version of that, is that going to help us either maintain momentum or grow momentum? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of one filter we look at. I think as far as maintaining momentum, the pandemic is the perfect example of that. We all had momentum going into the year. We cast our, January 2020 vision, and then all of a sudden, the pandemic hit, and March, that second week of March, we're all scrambling, and we say, we had momentum, and now we have to shift that momentum online. How can we maintain this momentum? And I think we can still have that concept, even though we're out of the pandemic. Easter, we knew, we had a huge Easter planned, and all of a sudden, we got hit with this crazy, 3-day snowstorm all of North Dakota. And so all of a sudden, it was guys, we better make sure our online service is not an afterthought. Why? Because we had a lot of momentum going into Easter. People were excited for Easter. And so online service cannot be an afterthought because it's going to help us maintain momentum. So I think if you're saying, how do I put value on online? Like, is it valuable? I think you need to look at it as, have you created it in a way where it's easily accessible and people know, like, hey, that's the second option I go to if I can't show up in person, and they are easily able to access it? Then I would say, yeah, I think it's a good thing to invest into because it will help, I think, help you maintain momentum. They say people show up to church on average 2 times a month. And so what are they doing the other 2 times a month? They're just not watching church. So for us, when we do our online service on Sundays, one of our shifts that we made from saying, hey, we're not just going to stream our service, was we're going to have an online dream team. We call all our like serve teams on a Sunday morning, we call them dream teams. So if you're on the nursery, if you're a greeter, coffee, everyone's on the dream team. So anyways, we said we're going to create dream team roles for our online campus. And so we have online greeters. And so we literally have people from other states, from other cities that are on our dream team, but they consider themselves a part of our online campus. And we took them through our, serve team class we call Discover. We have online. I do it the 2nd and 4th Sunday of every month. It's on Zoom. And we just go through our Discover class. It talks about the heart of our church, and then we talk about how you can serve. And so we have a few different ways you can serve on our online campus. And so one of those ways is a greeter. And so we say, hey, yeah, you can, just like you can stand at a front door and help people feel welcome as they're walking in the door and shake their hands, you can do the same thing. Like the front door of Facebook is the comment section. The front door of Church Online is the comment section. The front door of YouTube is the comment section. And so we say, hey, can you guys be online greeters? Get in the comment section. And so people maybe don't know that are watching. But, we have Sarah who gets on there and says, hey, everybody, so good to see my Evangel family. How's everyone doing? Where are you watching from? So we have like at least 3-4 people every service, and we stream our 9 o'clock and our 10:45 service that are just our online dream team greeters. And that's outside of, like, we have live hosts that we do. I think, regardless of what technology and the transitions and the backdrops you have, genuinely that's helped us make our online campus feel more personable, because we get on there about 5 minutes before service starts, and then we go 5 minutes into our service, and we have 2 hosts that are just talking, and we always have a question of the day, and it's always like this or that question. Like 2 weeks ago, Pastor Josh was preaching on anxiety and worry and stress, and so we asked the question, what stresses you out more? Showing up late for something or being unprepared, like if you had to choose? And people loved that question, and we got them commenting, oh, showing up late, being unprepared. But here's the cool thing about it. The more people comment on your service on Facebook, it actually increases the algorithm, which increases the likelihood of putting it on other people's Facebook news feeds, which increases the chance of the gospel getting onto people's Facebook feed on a Sunday morning. And so it's just, using the system for the sake of the gospel. And we have seen our numbers grow. We've seen we usually measure our viewers right in the middle of the service, and just to kind of see how many people are actually watching. So we don't do like the 3-second clicks or the 10-second views. But since we've started to do that, like our greeters, we've actually seen our viewers grow. And here's what I think. I think you can have a really $40,000 setup, and it can look really, really great. And I think there comes a point where you have to value it to a certain extent and say, I don't want our service to be a distraction to people. Like, I don't want it glitching out and then it becomes a distraction and frustration. But it doesn't have to be out of this world. For people, it's really more about relationship than it is about the wow factor. They say a person considers a church their church if they have 7 relationships there. And so, to me, if you can create something relational, and that's, I found that, like, oh, we found your church not because it was this awesome service we found. It was because Aunt Sally watches it, and we visited her one time, and we know Aunt Sally watches it, and we don't have a church, and I'm sure you all have a story like that. You're like, wow, how did this person stumble upon our service, And so I don't think you should downplay that. I think you should say, well, God stewarded us with that person, and so what do we do with that? Sorry, I'm kind of rambling all over the place here. But is this making sense so far?
Yep.
Where I'm going with it? Okay. So, maintain our momentum. So yeah, I think for us, we've looked at online to say we're going to use this to maintain momentum, but also now gain momentum. And so I think I want to talk about how online will help you expand. And so I just wrote down 4 different areas it can help you expand. First, it can help you expand your reach. Before online, the only way someone could check out the feel of your service, your message, was coming through your front doors. And you've probably heard this before, but the new front door of your church is now online. Yeah. Means your website, but honestly, if they get a chance to see your service, like, most people are going to check that out before they come sit inside your service. Even with, like, our last Discover class, that's kind of like, hey, if you're new to Evangel, first, second time, we encourage you to go to our Discover class. So we have our online Discover class. Our last one we had 3 people that showed up to it. 2 of them showed their faces. 1 of them would not show her face. She lives in Bismarck. She would comment in the comment section when I talked to her. But when I asked, what brought you here? And she's like, honestly, I found your service online in January, have no context of God, have loved it. I've been scared to death to come to your church. I've always watched online, and now I had the courage to sign up for this class today.
That's great. Thank you, Jesus.
Not willing to show my face, but I'll comment. And then when it came time to, like, hey, is there, a dream team that you're interested in joining or signing up for an online connect group, she signed off. But it's like, man, she took that next step, and I think we're always measuring that next step, like, who took one more step closer to Jesus, and I think we celebrate that win. And so for us, we've realized, like, man, this is a way for us to expand our reach, to allow people to see who we are incognito. And I just think, there's people in your communities that have heard your church. They know about your church, and who knows what, thought they have of your church or misconception they have of your church. Like, this is an opportunity for you to dispel any misconceptions that they might have of your church, and an opportunity for them to see who you truly are. And so I think whether it's in your own community, your own region, 25-mile radius, but then also, like we've talked about before, Aunt Sally has someone in Denver that she knows, and somehow, because Aunt Sally is relational with her and she goes to your church, she somehow got her to watch her church service. And so there is this ability for us to expand our reach. The other thing that it's done is it's allowed us to expand our training. I think you can utilize online ministry to train people in a greater way. And we've really adopted this method of reverse education, in a sense, where, normal education is you come, I teach, you listen, you leave. If you've got questions, I'll give you my number, we can talk about it afterwards, right? Reverse education is this idea of, like, you watch and listen at home and learn, you come back, and then we talk about it, you tell me what you shared, I might learn something from you, and then I'm going to follow up on what you watched, and we'll talk about it. And so we've done that with a lot of our ministries. We have our worship even set up in that way, where we have these courses set up. Josh Detweiler, who just got credentialed yesterday, he's been a big part of helping set up that. But we have bass players who's made these YouTube videos. And then we have this course that this U student who's interested in it, we say, hey, go online watch these videos, read some of this content. You can meet up with one of our bass captains, and they're going to talk about what you watched and what you learned. And so we do that with prayer team, we do that with connect groups, we do that with a lot of different things. And you might say, oh, video training, that sounds, so impersonal and not as spiritual. But really, I think it's just been more effective because we're saying, hey, what did you learn? Teach me. Let's make it a conversation. And so we still have that conversation. It's just not us talking to them. And so I think it's allowed us to expand our training in a greater way. And then the other way is it's allowed us to expand our community. And I've already kind of talked about this, but we've really, when we started the online campus, like I said, we've said a huge part of church is not just getting a sermon and a message and listening to worship and singing. It's really fellowshipping with the body of Christ. And when we encourage people to stay home and watch their service, we are doing them a disservice without connecting with the body of Christ and thinking that it's okay. Like you're gonna do great in your walk with the Lord by getting a message and digesting it on your own. Like that's not enough. I believe those are seeds being planted, but really you need fellowship with each other. And so we really strongly encourage people, hey, if you consider yourself a part of our online campus, and we really try to decipher the difference between like those who just are watching because they're gone at a soccer tournament and not going to be there on Sunday versus those who are an hour and a half away and they can't make it. And so they primarily watch online. We prioritize that crowd over those who just watch it when it's kind of inconvenient to come to church. And so we have people, like even longtime pillars of this church, that have not been able really to come back to church too because of COVID and concerns. And so we've even considered them a part of our online campus. And so community, it's not just relationship, right? It's care. It's taking care of one another. And so we started even a prayer line. And so we figured out a way during our online service, during the worship portion, where we say, right before we jump in, we say, hey, as we head into worship, we want you to know that we have some dream teamers that are ready to pray with you. And so if there's anything you need prayer for, please call this number, 701-975-6333. And we would love to pray with you. And every week we get phone calls from people, and we've been able to pray with people. And a lot of times it's people that aren't a part of our in-person campus. It's people that consider themselves a part of our online campus. And the cool thing is we that's another one of our dream team roles. And so we have a gal that's in really far rural parts of, I would say, southeastern North Dakota, who, is just far from anything. And there's a long story how she found it, but really cool. She came to our Discover class, wanted to be on a dream team, and she signed up, and she says, I love to pray with people. And we're like, great. So she's one of our prayer team members. So she's in the middle of North Dakota, rural North Dakota, and if someone calls, she answers the phone, and she prays. And so we have a few people like that. Same with other dream team roles. We have another gal who's part of our online campus, doesn't live in Bismarck, and she's part of our Connect team. And so anytime someone who fills out one of our online Connect cards, she writes out a personalized postcard and sends it out to them. And so really we just try to think, how can we make this more personal? And I just believe that as we're more intentional with the one, like God's going to give you more. Because if you're not intentional with the 3 people that are watching, why would he give you 10 more? And so I think we've kind of thought, if we're going to consider this a campus, we have to be intentional with the people that are watching. And so yeah, we've just said the next thing we need to do is we need to figure out how we can expand our community. And so that's been through like prayer, like our prayer line. We started an online Connect group where we have a 3 going right now. Our first one, we had a few people from North Dakota, one from Bismarck, Texas, Denver. I think it was a conglomerate of states that were in the Connect group, and they just are going through Alpha together. And it's called Alpha Now. It's their online version of Alpha, and I would say if you're looking to start an online Connect group, that is the perfect resource to use, Alpha Now. And so we did a training with Sarah, who is leading it, and we trained her all on Zoom, and we sent her the videos, and we talked, did the reverse education, and launched her. And so that's another way that we've expanded our communities through online Connect groups, our greeters online. And then also we've been, thinking about care and messing around. So we have this online Facebook care group to where if you want to be a part of just helping out when needs pop up, sign up for this care group, and we're going to put cares requests in here, so-and-so needs a box of diapers, and if you want to do something about that, you can do that. And so we've even reached out to James River Church in Springfield, and one thing they started, and something that we're kind of working on, is this Amazon wish list. And so as people put things in this, care group from the campus, we just put it on an Amazon wish list, and if someone wants to buy it, they can buy it. And so really trying to allow the church body to be the church body. And so, we do that here in person. If someone walks through our front doors and there's this benevolence request, we try to figure out how do we do that. Well, what happens when someone from our online campus from Denver puts in a benevolence request? We can't really go to the grocery store and buy them their things, but we can use Amazon, And so really just trying to think outside the box and be creative in that way, and really building this community. And as we've done that, I think people are feeling more connected. They feel more a part of the body of Christ. And another thing that we've done is we've created these boxes. So anytime someone fills out a Connect card, and we push this every week, hey, if you watch our online campus, or maybe this is your first time joining us on our online campus and you've never filled out an online Connect card, I encourage you to do that. We just want to be able to get to know you more, and we also just want to send you a welcome box. And inside the box, it just has a little welcome to the online campus. We just put a mug, a personalized note card. So they get 2 note cards, one from Lisa, and then one from us, and then one about Discover, which is that class I talked to you about, that next step class, with the QR code, and to sign up, they get sent the Zoom link, and then we just, whatever gifts you want to put in there. But, so that, I don't know, that's just something that we did that, the moment we did that, I think we showed, because it was kind of frustrating people who just watch online. They're watching online for a reason, because they don't want to be seen. But the moment we did this, I think we had 10 people that morning that we showed this to, hey, we want to send you a box. They signed up and they filled out a Connect card. And we're not just about getting cards, but we just know, man, if we can break through those barriers and get into their life, I know God wants to do more in their life. And so this is kind of the last thing I was going to share on that. And then the last way we use online campus is to expand our discipleship. And I know I kind of already talked about training, but when I say discipleship, I'm thinking about some of those next steps that people need to take in their walk, whether it's baptism, whether it's dedication of their child, or they just gave their heart to the Lord. Now what? And so I already explained Alpha, but our Discover class, I think we consider that a part of discipleship. Of hey, you just got plugged into the body of Christ. If you're a hand, how are you supposed to function? Are you just going to figure that out on your own? No, you should come to this class, and we want to help you discover your gifts and discover your purpose in the body of Christ. And then also baptisms. I think, especially in North Dakota, baptism's a huge hurdle for people, because we live in a very Catholic saturated, Lutheran saturated culture, and so, infant baptism's a big thing. And so for us, we say, hey, baptism is a decision that you make, and when you give your heart to Jesus, the Bible says repent and be baptized, believe and be baptized. And so once we've started to even post baptism videos and even do more discipleship online revolving baptism, it's really helped people take that next step and dispel some of those difficulties in their mind and their heart. And so thinking about how can we expand our discipleship using online.
Can I ask a question on
Yeah.
that? What do you do with baptisms with people that don't live here?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we recently are tackling that conversation because we kind of had to answer it from a theological and philosophical standpoint and say what is required for baptisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's a public declaration of a person's faith, profession of faith. Up to this point, we've anyone who's been online has just traveled here and we baptized them.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, a really cool story because I think we have time for it. We had someone from Thailand who watched from the jungles of Thailand. The dad wanted him to be a Buddhist priest, and somehow started watching Evangel online, and he made his way to America, and was in Bismarck, and it was just 4 months ago where he was so excited he finally got to go to church. He had got a visa, and he wanted us to baptize him, and we got him plugged into a Connect group. But I am eager to figure out how do we allow someone to not have to travel all the way from Thailand to get baptized. But I think one thing we're thinking about, I think we're going to build on our Connect groups, our small group model. And so right now we have 2 small group leaders that are not in Bismarck that lead an online Connect group. And so we're kind of asking the question of man, if we have someone that's close to one of those Connect group leaders, could they baptize them and even get us on Zoom and hey, let's video this with an iPhone, and then even on our online service, we can quick before the service say, hey, this week we had so-and-so from, wherever get baptized, and Sarah, one of our Connect group leaders, was able to baptize her, and it's still a profession of faith, we're showing it to the church, and so I think that's the route we're kind of starting to head down is, can they drive here? B, is there an online Connect group close to them that maybe they could go to? And then I think the third idea that we've talked about is hey, let's call up, or let's look around their community, and maybe they don't know of a church that is a good church, but maybe as we look around, hey, this looks like a great church to us. Personally, I think if that church is a life-giving church, and it's going to be a church that you feel like you and your family can grow in, get plugged into that church. We'd love to have you part of the online campus, but get plugged into that church. But even to call and say, hey, would we be able to allow someone to get baptized at your church? Here's their story. So I think networking probably is our other option that we're looking into as well. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Hey, Bryce.
Yeah.
So when your socials and whatnot, when you do your marketing side of it, so whether that be digital marketing, if you go ahead and billboard, we'll do stuff out of theater. Before the movie starts, they'll do those ad parts. So we buy stuff like that in our theaters, and so what we do there, though, is we just put our website.
Mm-hmm.
So there'll be a black screen that comes up. So right before the new Spider-Man movie comes out, right, it's just wcag.church.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a curiosity thing. We're not saying, hey, find Jesus today.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, don't you know that we're not really preaching hard. It's just that discovery for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so for you guys, but we just put our website for everything because our socials are on that, and then of course the information. But do you segregate out when you go out to kind of advertise your online? Are you saying, hey, Facebook / and YouTube, or do you just go to goevangel.org and then have that kind of be the resting place I'm the focus point for everything that kind of goes out.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what we've done. We used to kind of, a few years back, be like, hey, find us on this, and find us like, okay, nobody's gonna remember that.
Yeah,
You know, nobody's gonna remember, ours is horrible, by the way. It's like Facebook / Watford City AG, okay? Well, everything's wcag.church to our URL, and then from there they can find all our socials and
Mm-hmm.
places they want to stream and whatnot. So when you guys go, how are you approaching that? Is it at one base point, let everybody find everything off of Go Evangel, or how are you gonna get that out?
Yeah. So you're kind of asking more specifically for the online campus, like if I'm going to invite someone to the online
So it may
campus.
be on Facebook, but are you saying, hey, go to Evangel first, or would you say go to Facebook first?
Yeah. Honestly, we would push people to our website.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we would love it if everyone watched Church Online, which is
Yep.
that platform. It just has the best options, has the best platform, metrics. If we could not do Facebook, that would be awesome for many reasons.
Yes.
But it just stinks because that is where we get the most traffic.
Yes, us too. We get the most from the
Yeah.
Facebook, YouTube, and then of course our site, we stream too. But
Mhm.
okay, so you do the same. You push it. You drive everybody.
Yeah.
Go to Evangel.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just was there's something else that's going on that might be better. Okay, I'll give that a shot. But that's what we've been doing, and it seems to be doing well for us. Or okay.
Yeah. I would
So-
say I think that's a good approach. I think we always push people to our website and then try to make sure our website is good to where it gets people to where they need to go.
Yes. Okay.
And then when we are like our hosting every Sunday, we reference where you can watch from though, because maybe someone's having a difficult time. Facebook stopped working. Like, hey, if there's many places you can watch on YouTube, Facebook. We have Beck TV is another option, and so and you guys could look into some of those options too. I mean, there's sometimes where local TV channels
Yep.
are like looking for churches to post, to make their services available online. So, yeah. Are there any other questions or things that I said that maybe spark some ideas that you wanted to talk about?
Not so much a question other than, would you mind giving us your phone number so that if we have questions later, we can call you?
I can do that.
That would be great.
Totally. If it's tech, I'll probably give you someone else's phone number. But yeah, 701-580-8883.
3 8s?
Yep.
Okay.
Still my Watford City number.
Hey, there we go. Mine's in Illinois. I never changed it from 1999 with Watford.
Any other questions or thoughts you guys have?
Well, for me, basically, I guess I've learned a lot from you about the aspect of gaining momentum, taking the people who are there online, and you hit the nail right on the head. Most of those who are watching from as far away as Hastings, Minnesota, are related to somebody that's already walking in the front door and attending my church. And so how do we pull them in, make it a relational thing where they feel like they're more than connected to just a sermon? Because admittedly, I'm from a community church, and so that being the case, it's stand here, sit here, pray this, pray that, and sit here and now listen to the sermon. And so a lot of them will skip that and go right to the sermon part.
Yeah.
And so, but how do we get them involved? And you've given some great ideas for that, Pastor Bryce. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay, so your online greeters, do you have them specific for the platforms, or do they just like hop from Facebook to YouTube to your, whatever you're using, your website?
Right now, just because it's a smaller team, we just have them do all platforms.
Okay.
So because we do 2 services, so like Sarah's on Church Online, YouTube, and Facebook, just kind of hopping back and forth between.
And they
all
just
of them.
use their regular name, like they're not under Evangel?
No, yeah.
Okay.
We started off having like one role as like Evangel host, which we still do, but then we added the greeter where it was like, hey, if someone says they're struggling, you can just respond to that. Where you have like an Evangel host who speaks as Evangel, who's more so like if Pastor Josh says, hey, if you gave your heart to Jesus today, you should text. You respond to 77411, and then we have that Evangel host who copy and paste a lot of those links or event links. And we actually have a document that we just update every week where it just has like quick copy and paste links like, hey, the moment you hear the host reference, hey, if you need prayer for anything, you can fill out our prayer card online. And the online host just copies that and pastes it in there. So that's probably more than you wanted. But does that make sense,
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
No.
Yeah, well, because like sometimes I'll be under our new life or whatever. One day I accidentally did it from my own, and people responded to me, like, hey, because I think sometimes it's intimidating when the church is saying, hey, if you need prayer, but if it's Joe Schmo, if it's just a regular person, they're like, hey, you can pray for me for whatever.
Yeah.
Like they engaged with me a lot more when it was just me. So, but I was just curious.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think trying to use people's names and faces more than the church is going to be better. Yeah. Makes it more personal.
And that makes me feel better, because I'm like, man, they have really good engagement. But not like they're being paid to be there, but now it makes sense. Like, you can build that community more than you would build it. Like you said, with an in-person greeter.
Yeah.
That's genius. Cool.
I was thinking about, I left my mind. I was going to say something else.
So before you started the online campus and started using the host, how did you open kind of the broadcast or whatever before the service? You didn't roll right into the sermon, right? Did you have something kind of?
We just basically, I think we just had like a countdown video that just kind of rolled right into.
Okay, you just kind of clip that in ahead of it. Okay.
I mean, with the switcher and some of that tech. Yeah.
You referenced quite a few Highlands connections as far as Dream Team, your legacy team. The question I have is with your Dream Team as far as getting them connected. You said you had what would be their growth track, the equivalent of the growth track, which is like, get to know us, get to know yourself. What are the expectations of leadership? Let's get you plugged in. You said you have like a Discover class. Is that different from that growth track class, or is it?
It is the same concept. We used to have a 3-week growth track class. Actually, it used to be 4 weeks, and we've boiled it down to
1 week.
1 week. Yeah.
Okay.
Pastor Bean, we're doing one on discipleship tomorrow. We probably won't talk a lot about that, but yeah, we just found it was really hard to get people to go to 4 different weeks before they started serving.
Yeah.
And so we've just found we need to get them serving and engaged and plugged in as soon as possible, and then disciple them on the way. And so making sure we're not just plugging people in and all right, see ya, thanks for serving, but changing that approach of saying, no, we want to give them the information we feel like they need and discover who we are as a church, what we believe, but then just figure out where is their fit, and then stay connected with them and continue to grow and disciple them. So
yeah, I guess we found that too, whether it be our online, because we've done a growth track online too, but the people that are coming to church aren't necessarily doing growth track the first time they come.
No.
That's what I'm more curious about, but you've basically connected all that into one thing. Right?
Yeah, and then Alpha, I think we've just leaned on that as a new believers path, which is a 10-week, 12-week, however you boil it down. But so rather than trying to make our Discover or Next Steps class an all-encompassing thing of membership, new believers, serving, anything and everything, we just figure we can't accomplish all of that in one set of classes, and so let's make Discover more about just getting a person plugged into the church. Alpha is if you're a new believer, you should probably be in one of our small groups that does Alpha, and then we're actually launching a membership class that is going to be separate from all of that here in a short bit. So.
And that'd be more for probably voting type membership, or is that okay?
Yeah. And that I think membership's all dependent upon how you're structured, and I know Highlands Church membership doesn't hold a lot of like weight to it,
Yeah.
so they can just like make people members, and it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing. We had 2 tiers of membership.
Oh, okay.
Where step 1 is basically you're getting plugged into membership, which is worked online, but then we have a charter membership, which is like now you can vote and
Okay.
like vote on board members. And all
Yeah,
that
yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
But the challenge has
That's
been,
cool.
and that's kind of where the challenge has been how do we incorporate the online community into our church.
Mhm.
And if they're part of the dream team, how do we make them feel like they're part of the dream team, even though they're in Minnesota or
Mhm.
Atlanta or wherever they're at?
Another thing I was going to talk about was like, and you probably know this already, but like when you're speaking, I think one thing that we really try to be conscious of, and even as a pastor, like when I'm preaching, we have, I don't know if you know Jen at all, but Jen has been at Evangel for many years, and she kind of serves as our events coordinator, but she's served in a lot of roles, but she's big on like language. Like, hey Bryce, you said this way, and you should probably say it this way. And so she really helps with that, and I think, so we really try to be conscious of like, do we ever speak to our online campus? You know, or the way we speaking is always just speaking to the people in the room.
Right. Yeah.
And so we integrated prayer during worship, not just for online campus, but also for during our church service the last couple of years, or last couple of months. And Pastor Josh has gotten up there after the first song, and the first couple of weeks, he was just speaking to the room. But then that third week, like, hey, can you reference the online campus too during that time? And man, it made a huge difference even when he speaks to the online campus, even if it's just for a short moment. Look into the camera and just speak to them, and it really makes a big difference. So.
I just want to say, Sharon, you talk about a Jen. Everybody needs a Jen.
Yeah.
So what I mean by this is have someone that you have great confidence in, relationship, strength,
Yeah.
so that when they come to you and say, hey, when you said X, they're not coming to hurt you. It's not said to, it's actually there to help you. And those people that you have a confidence in that can, I even have like friends of mine from around more like the nations. I'll say, hey man, check this out, tell me what you think, and why was it great or why was it horrible? And there's about 2 people I trust to tell me, and I'll take it. Otherwise, I'm all up in arms. But it's great to have that, and I think it's just a great example to say, oh, you know what? Let me rethink how. You know what? I did exclude my online content or my online viewer, or I excluded my main audience because I was so enamored with, and that's that tension. But someone that can speak to you, like a Jen here, or the people that I use, just to be like, hey, maybe this is a better way to approach, or something to say to connect a little better. And man, that's a huge value. If you can receive it, it's a huge value.
Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah. Someone who they get the vision.
Yeah.
They're there to help you.
Yeah.
Like look good in a sense of like they don't want you to look like a goofball up
Right.
there. And so I think that's great wisdom.
Back to the baptism question. Thank you for asking that, because the church I come from, it's splash a little water in their face and we're good. Hey, I'm an immersion guy. Excuse me. Been card carrying Assemblies of God minister for more than 40 years. No, I'm not going to splash a little water in your face. We're going to find a swimming pool and you're going to go for a swim.
Hopefully in July in North Dakota.
Exactly. So when you come to an answer on that, Pastor Bryce, it'd be nice to know that. But in reference to that, I don't know how many within the sound of my voice now know the Lundstroms. Had Larry Lundstrom come to my church, and knowing that infant baptism theology that the church had, and we've now since kind of moved away from that, he made it an important point. He said, if you were baptized and confirmed as a youth, you want to make a recommitment of the commitment you made as a young child. And if you want to be baptized again, see Pastor Maxted, he would be glad to do that. A recommitment of what baptism's already done for you.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, what a marvelous inroad to do. To say, okay, it's not, you screwed up the first time. No.
honor
We're
you.
just
at the past.
recommitting what you did as a youth or what your parents did for you as a child.
Yeah,
Love that approach.
that's a great approach.
Gets rid of
I
all
love
the,
that.
gets rid of all the walls, Pastor Bryce.
That's
and
awesome.
Then they're willing to come say,
I love that.
yeah, I'd love to do that.
Yeah, that's really good.
See, we have people that want to get baptized, it's just a logistics thing, they're in San Diego, they're in different places. And we had somebody come up, from Georgia, and like, we're doing an online study right now with a bunch of people, none of them live in the state, so it's like, what does this look like? Can we do, just like you said, where maybe even their family members are the ones that are physically dipping them in the water or whatever, but we're celebrating it on a Sunday in our church? I don't know what it looks like. And
Yeah,
So-
I wouldn't be afraid to explore that. I mean, I think that's what I've been like, hey, get me on Zoom, and if there's other believers that are there,
Yeah.
that can get you fully submersed underwater,
Yep.
Yeah.
and then we can celebrate you for the church.
Don't get me, I would love to travel to these places.
Oh,
You know,
yeah, we had a budget for that.
Yeah.
San Diego sounds great.
So
But building on that though, I mean, it's not just baptism, right? It's weddings, it's funerals, it's dedications, it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of hurdles in this respect, right? And
Mhm.
one of the things you mentioned that I thought was good is just looking for, like, it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive, right? If there's a church near you,
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
For sure.
Yes,
What?
that's a great idea because, like we say, the end game is to get them connected.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
And Pastor Kent has at his church a unique tool in that the baptistry rolls around on wheels.
Yeah.
He's got the coolest baptistry I've ever seen.
see the mobile unit then?
It is. No, brother, you're absolutely right. It is a mobile unit, and I've seen it because when my father-in-law passed away and got to talking about that, he said, "Well, here, let me show it to you." Whoop, out and rolls it right out there in the foyer.
We just
Whoa,
saw
that
it
is
for
the
you.
coolest
He's
thing.
got a mobile unit.
He does, and it's the greatest thing I've ever seen. Because I don't have a baptistry at the church I've got, but a mobile unit like that would run right down the middle of the aisle, no problem. Plug that in, hot water's warm, here you need to be, right here. I
Do
love
it.
that whole line.
You should do it.
Live in the van?
One of our favorite tactics,
What's that?
is even with, and as you're speaking, let's say you have 3 or 4 people, and with the technology today, right? So they can record themselves or have someone record themselves being done, and then you can actually post that in a comment section, either in YouTube of the parishioners that have been baptized, and you're celebrating with them on that day in the comment section or in that growth group that you had as well on an online side where that week is kind of dedicated to all of our online friends that are doing it. But the beauty about the technology, as we're kind of speaking of today, is that those things aren't all possible, whereas, whatever 30 years ago perhaps that wouldn't have been available. So your friend in San Diego, someone does dunk them, and if you're able to give a video like commissioning of it, or if someone there just does it, you can post it and people can celebrate.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that people will comment. I've seen this actually done, and it's a little video of a 5-second, name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, so-and-so comes up and they come out and they're celebrating, and you'll see people comment, "This is so great, it's so great, look the Lord has done," type of thing. And you can actually post multiples of those in a comment thread on a baptism Sunday on your online church. So there are some unique, I think, things that can transpire that are actually really great.
That's cool.
Yeah, Zoom baptism would work marvelously.
You can do a live Zoom too.
Yeah, do a live
But-
Zoom, like you said, Pastor, just, okay, I'm there, I facilitate the service, but somebody else is actually doing the immersion
I'm on there.
in the location where that individual's at. That would work. It's a great idea.
That's cool.
That's worth $1 million.
Well, I know it's 4 o'clock, so I think, is there a break quick before the next session?
Yeah, 15-minute break.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Brian.
Well, thanks you guys. I honestly wasn't sure, yeah.
You did
Love
good.
it.
Wasn't sure what the needs were gonna be, so
No, but you did good.
Yeah, thanks.
if you want the tech side of it, tomorrow, yeah, our team